first of all, we started talking about the source of the remedy, which is this white portion which is present inside the snow white inner portion of the oyster shell, and its effects. Okay, and that is used as a source, and how it's you know, I first told you about that story, that since it's inside, the effect of it is that the patient also wants security. So since it's a soft material inside, and this is a hard shell outside of it, and it feels very secure inside. Although this is not what Dr. N. Choudhuri talks about, and that's also what I wanted to clarify. So let's start with it. So first of all, he talked about the leucophlegmatic constitution of the remedy. Okay, leucophlegmatic constitution, and in that you might remember that leuco meant white and phlegma meant sluggish, right? So this patient had this kind of sluggish thing. They had this dropsical body and an accumulation of fat, right? Accumulation of fat, which does not happen in a healthy way, but very unhealthy, and it actually makes the patient weak, makes the patient fragile. Yeah, it leads to, you know, it leads to a curvature of bones, and it actually does not give the patient a good kind of energy. They are very weak, and they cannot take any sustained kind of exertion, right? They cannot take exertions. Okay, exertion. So that's it. And then we talked about the sweat, because he said that all fat people are sweaty, and I told you the reason behind it, the pathophysiological reason behind it, physiological reason behind it actually, that why all fat people sweat. So that happens. So they have sweat or profuse all over the body, but what is different with Calcarea? They have more of the sweat on their head. And at that time, I hope that you remember the image that I showed you. The patient has a lot of sweat around the head and the nape of neck, right, and the nape of neck, because of which the pillow gets wet around, and these droplets like form a pearl around the face and come rolling down, right? That is what we talked about. Please do not forget this image. And then we went ahead to talk about the scrofula thing, the lymph node involvement of this remedy, in which we always saw this image. This is how the patient actually looks. The patient has these kind of lesions on their neck, because the lymph nodes of their cervical region, that is their neck region, are actually involved, and they get inflamed because of TB, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and it leads to a lot of you know, symptoms as well. But what happens is, these patients actually, that also shows you, and these patients have glandular enlargement. They have a tendency to have this glandular enlargement. So glands very easily get enlarged, and they have this appearance of bloatedness rather than health, accumulation of fat, and all that is there, right? Next, we went on to understand about the ossification related symptoms. है ना? तो ossification में we talked about the curvature of bones, because the bones are not very, you know, they do not grow very naturally or in a very healthy way. The growth is actually delayed. The bones take a long time to develop, right? Developmental delay related to the bones. Okay, development does not take place on time. Okay, there will be, even after maturing, they will remain fragile. There will be curvature that we have seen, isn't it? We saw that they had these knock knees and bow legs, right? We also saw that their fontanelles did not close on time, right? The normal time was 18 months, right? But they did not close. This is anterior fontanelle, posterior fontanelle, which did not close on time. And then we also saw that they had delayed walking. Right? Their head was too large. That means they had this, actually the cause was hydrocephalus, which was also a cause of delayed fontanelle closure. After that, we talked about the skin of this remedy, isn't it? We've already talked about the leucophlegmatic thing. Okay, after that, we talked about the skin of this remedy. So in skin, what did we see? That the skin is unhealthy, right? The skin was unhealthy. Least scratch you do, and it will separate. And there is this eruptions with yellow pus, if you remember. Yeah, many dermatological conditions we talked about, especially lipoma, right? And then we also talked about the susceptibility to cold. So in susceptibility to cold, we saw that even least bit of cold air will give them ailments. They cannot take cold air. Then it is very hard for them to keep themselves warm. We saw they have this sensation of coldness, right? This sensation of coldness is there in single parts of the body, which is very, 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 very important. And then we talked about the appetite, which was the last point, right? In appetite, we saw that they have desire for raw potato, desire for boiled eggs, and they did not like meat, right? We talked about this. And then we talked about the Calcarea Carb baby, isn't it? So the Calcarea Carb baby had all these features I need not write. There was curved bones, knock knees, bow legs, open fontanelles. Baby is chubby but not healthy. There's delayed dentition that you see. And then there's this sweat which makes the willow wet. There's lymphatic enlargements also. There is SAR diarrhea that we have seen, isn't it? And this is very important. SAR diarrhea is very important. They have pot belly, they have defective nutrition, they have profuse perspiration, tendency to obesity. And after this, we talked about the mind of the remedy, right? So in mind, we talked first of all about the two important things, that is the confusion of mind and this complete blank state. They are not able to grasp, they're not able to apprehend or understand anything. The intellect does not seem to absorb. They feel completely blank. And the reverse is also there, that which is more important. The reverse is also there, which is overactive mind can also be there, right? Overactive mind can also be there. Thoughts keep coming on and they cannot sleep. They are never at rest because there is fear of impending calamity. Okay, something that is going to happen. Impending means it is pending, it's going to happen. Impending calamity. Okay, there is this apprehension that they have. Apprehension itself means fear of future. So apprehension means जो होने वाला है उसका पहले ही डर लग रहा है. Something that is going to happen you fear earlier only. So apprehension is there about the present as well as about the future. And this fear will make them first of all sad and then fearful. That is lachrymose, right? And then we see that there is fear of impending calamity. So it is there only, but along with that, more important fear which is there is dread of insanity. So they feel that they will become insane because they know that they are very confused to their core, right? They are very confused at their core, but they try to make an image. They try to show to people that they are not confused. Okay, even if they are inside, they are confused. And now what happens is that they have this fear that people will find out that they are confused. So there is great fear. There's a state of caution that actually he says that there is this state of caution where they think that lest people would know about their confusion of their mind, about the confusion of their mind. Right? That is very, very important. Then we also talked about the head related symptoms of Calcarea Carb, which was the last area we covered in this, which we covered or we will cover in this part, that is head. So in head we saw that this patient had actually, even with this diagram you can learn, right? And there was another diagram also. So there's this head that your patient has, and there's this occiput. From the occiput your pain goes over to the top of the head, and also there is burning in the vertex, right? Vertex mein there is burning. Which were the other remedies for it? It was sulfur and it was phosphorus. Now this patient has this feeling of coldness, icy coldness over the head, and the contrary, the strange symptom is that along with it there is also congestion in the head, which tells you that, which also gives you a relation of belladonna, which points out the relation between belladonna and Calcarea Carb. And the strange jest symptom is that along with this coldness, along with this congestion, there is sweat. Although the patient is feeling cold, okay, still there is sweat, and that is also profuse. So that is what we learnt about in this part. I hope you remember all the symptoms and all the diagrams also. You remember the drawings and it helps you. Thank you. So that's all for today. Let's meet in part 2 and understand more about this beautiful remedy Calcarea Carb. This video we started about talking about the eye related symptoms, in which we talked about the keratitis, right? Eye related symptoms, and we talked about the keratitis, eye, nose, ear actually, right? So see, we talked about keratitis and I showed you these diagrams. I hope you remember when you see these diagrams the whole points also. There's photophobia, there's aggravation by candlelight, morning agglutation, numerous vessels, pus is also there. Okay, conjunctiva is inflamed, lids get swollen, cataract, opacification of lens will be there, and this opacification means thickening. Now this thickening you also see in ear and nose. In ear there will be thickening of tympan and wings of nose are thickened. In ear also there will be purulent otarial discharge, and here also there will be purulent discharge, offensive discharge. The ulceration will be there, ulceration in cornea also was there. Defective hearing, perversion of hearing will be there. They will not hear any normal. ऐसा नहीं कि deaf हो गए, पर कुछ और ही सुनाई दे रहा है. Bringing, buzzing, singing, hissing, thundering, anything. A polypus will be there. Here also. That's what we learned in the eye, ear, and nose related symptoms, right? So I think there's no need to write about it. So that's what we learned. Then we went on to learn about the stomach and abdomen related symptoms, in which we talked about especially the tendency to diarrhea that this remedy has, right? The tendency that they have for diarrhea. Then we talked about the diarrhea itself. Why do they have diarrhea? So we talked about the very important point that there is malabsorption in this remedy. This malabsorption itself gives rise to diarrhea because fat is not getting absorbed, right? And then we talked about the points related to diarrhea, that is what is the ailments from. So one thing that led to the diarrhea was the dentition related issues, right? The dentition related issues was the one of the problems. Then the other problems was summer, right? Then the third problem was milk, right? These were the ailments from that we talked about. Then we also talked about how the stools are. The stools will be actually varying in a character, but they can be white, they can be sour, they are undigested, right? They are undigested. And then they can be hard at the start and then become absolutely liquid afterwards. That can also be there, right? They can be involuntary foamy. But the important point was there is ravenous appetite along with diarrhea, isn't it? And when you examine the patient, you will find two important things, right? First, that there will be inverted saucer shaped stomach, and then second, that there will be the abdomen which will be sensitive to pressure. And that will be because of the accumulation of flatus, right? Then we went ahead to talk about the abdomen related symptoms. The abdomen, there will be gurgling, obviously, because there is diarrhea. There will be colicky pains around the umbilicus, right? Around the umbilicus there will be colicky pains. Then there will be ascites, there will be enlargement of the liver, ascites, liver will get enlarged. And then there will be mesenteric glands are there, no? These mesenteric glands will get inflamed. That is swollen. And indurated means hard. Induration means hardened. Then there will be constipation. We talked about constipation. In constipation, the most important point was that the stools will need mechanical assistance. And I hope you can remember the another remedies which had the same thing. That was aloe. The another remedy was sanicula, silicea, sepia, and selenium. So see, many S are there, right? Okay, then constipation also gives rise to hemorrhoids. Then we started to talk about the reproductive symptom related symptoms, in which first of all we talked about the male and then we talked about the female. Okay, in the male we see that there is bad effects of masturbation will be contracted by this remedy. Then if there is desire, but the desire, even if there is desire, the organ is very weak. Okay, the organ will not get erected and there will be no emission taking place on the right time. It will take place before, or it will take place too soon. That is what Dr. N.M. Choudhuri says in his own words. And weakness of limbs will be there along with it. Then we talked about again the glandular action of this remedy, that is the testicles will get indurated, that is hardened. Inflammation of prepuce will be there, warts will be there on the sexual organs. Okay, then we talked about the smelling like these will smell like old cheese and herring brine. Okay, then we went ahead to talk about the female related symptoms. In the female related symptoms, we talked about the nymphomania first of all, which is excessive sexual desire, and then we talked about the menstruation, a very important point. Okay, menstruation was provoked by what? Provoked by first by overexertion and also by emotions. The menstruation is too early, too profuse, and lasts too long, isn't it? And then why is it too profuse? It may be due to fibroids in uterus. Yeah, fibroids or polyps in uterus, right? Yeah. After that, we talked about the symptoms before and after menstruation. Before menstruation does not, Dr. Choudhuri does not tell us a lot about it. He tells us that the patient does not feel well. And then after menstruation and during menstruation, there was a list of things that happen, right? The patient will have may have headache, backache, hips pain, breast pain, and get swollen. Leukorrhea can also be there during and after menses also. Then there is mental excitability, etc. Okay, and then when we talked about leukorrhea, a very important point we talked about, right? That there is leukorrhea in infants also, or before puberty also. Leukorrhea is thick and yellowish in color. Yeah, and it is especially seen between menses. Then suppression of menses will lead to lung complications, lung related issues, right? Anemia, we talked about. The last point of this video was anemia. So anemia is seen especially in young girls. So even if they look fat, flabby, robust, very healthy, when you examine their blood, it may be lacking in RBCs. So when we started talking about Calcarea Carb today, we talked about first of all the urinary organs in this remedy. In the urinary organs, we talked about the application of this remedy, which can take place in diabetes, right? Diabetes is a condition in which because there is polyuria, right? And we also saw that polyuria, and we also saw that okay, so we also saw that this is a very important symptom in Calcarea, that is that there is frequent urination. In 1 hour, they will have to go to urinate many times, right? There is frequent urination in this remedy. And then there is another thing which we saw, that this can be used in albuminaria and in polypi or varices of bladder, where we discussed about the polypi thing. And then we moved on ahead to talk about the symptoms which take place after urination. Also, there is tickling of urine, right? After urination also the urine keeps sticking on. And then there is one important symptom which we talked about, that is involuntary urination, right? Which took place on every motion. Then we also talked about nocturnal urinalysis, which may be present. And in urine, we talked about an important point, that the urine has a very strong odor, right? Once smelled, you can never forget it. Then we went on to talk about the pregnancy related symptoms. In the pregnancy related symptoms, we talked first about conception, right? So this remedy helps in conception. If there is no problems in the reproductive organs, but still the patient is not able to conceive, which may be due to constitutional dyscrasia, then Calcarea Carb can help you in that. Then we also talked about hemorrhage, right? Hemorrhage which continues to take place even after getting pregnant, even after pregnancy. Okay, so in these conditions, Calcarea Carb will stop the blood flow and will help you in preventing miscarriage. We also talked about the cramps, which are very common in pregnancy, cramps in toes and soles of feet. Yeah, and then we talked about an important point, which is false labor pains. In false labor pains, we saw that these pains actually run upwards. Yeah, these pains run upwards and they will be deleterious to the mother and will reduce the strength of the mother and not effect at all. And then we talked about an important point again, which was this phlegmasia alba dolens. You need not remember this, okay, for exams especially. It actually means edema of feet. You can write that only, the edema of feet in pregnancy. And then there can be galactorrhea, right? There can be this galactorrhea which we talked about. There can be excessive or deficient secretion of milk, isn't it? Then we talked about a very beautiful point, that it can also improve the quality of milk. So if the baby is not drinking the milk, even if there is no other issue, the milk may not have a good taste. It may be disagreeable and nauseating in taste, and therefore the baby is not able to drink, and even if he is hungry. So if you give Calcarea to this patient, it will sweeten the milk, and but not to any patient, okay? Obviously the Calcarea symptoms must be present, the typical symptoms of Calcarea must be present. Then we went on to talk about the respiratory organs, right? In the respiratory organs, we also discussed about an important and very interesting point. First of all, that the expectoration is yellow, lumpy, and sweet. Okay, so expectoration of many remedies, are told to have different tastes, which is also very important, right? Many because we have very various tests, and we can that is also an indication to any remedy. If we know the taste that the patient has and know the remedy that has the taste, we obviously know that this remedy can be maybe helpful in this case. Then we saw that this expectoration of Calcarea carb, when you throw it in water, it falls like a star. So it looks like a falling star, because you saw that this was the mucus, and the mucus will have kind of like these trails it will leave behind when it was falling, right, in the water. Okay, so if you want to see the diagram, let me show you. So it will look like this, right, when it's falling in water. Okay, then we talked about the things like, let's discuss over here only. We talked about TB, in which there is prodromal stage and advanced stage. In prodromal stage, the spasmodic cough is there with typical symptoms of Calcarea. There is leukophlegmatic, chilling and sweating palms. Advanced stage, there are large cavities which are formed, especially in the middle third of the right lung, right, middle lobe of the right lung. And then Dr. N. Choudhuri says that this remedy should not be used before nitric acid or sulfur, because it will cause unnecessary complications. So let's not write this part now, because we've already discussed it now. So let's move on ahead, and we talked about fever of this remedy, which can be used in intermittent fever as well, and typhoid fever. You know that typhoid fever is actually a continuous kind of fever. So when you have it, it will go on continuously. But intermittent means it is there now, and it is not for some period of time it will not be there. Then again it will come on and it will not be there. Intermittent fever, we saw that there are various stages like prodrome stage, and chill stage, and heat stage, and sweat stage, right? And prodrome, we saw that joints were painful, drawing sign of pain was there, and there was great heaviness which was felt in the limbs and the head. In chill also, we saw that this heaviness, this sensation of weight continued, and it will increase with the chills and it will decrease with the chills. There is and there was this icy coldness, right, in the limbs, especially. Whatever you do, it is not, the limbs are not getting warm, and the chill was beginning through the stomach, right? Yeah, and then the heat stage came, where we talked about that the patient is thirstless during the heat stage, and he feels like he has been drenched with hot water. Then we talked about the next stage, which is sweat stage, again, which was thirstless. See, I again missed the same point which I had earlier missed, that in heat stage there is also mental symptoms. There is mind related symptoms, that the patient feels anxiety and despair, right? Then we saw that this remedy should never be just given. You should see the constitutional symptoms and the psoriatic cachexia before thinking of Calcarea carb. Then we went on to talk about the typhoid fever. And in the typhoid fever, what did we talk about? We talked about the sleeplessness of this remedy. Sleeplessness, which is mainly because of the overactivity of mind. Overactivity of mind, and this overactive mind also can be seen in opium, nux and bryonia, and because of that there will be a disagreeable idea which will stay in the patient's mind, and he will keep on thinking about that. Then this patient has horrid visions in typhoid, right? He will talk about what? Talk about mice, fire, murder. He will talk about fire, right? He will talk about murder, mice and murder, okay? So that's what he will talk about. Then we've also seen that he will play with cats and animals during this time. he will have this palpitation vagara. And then we also talked about epilepsy, which I will write here only. So we talked about epilepsy also of this remedy. In epilepsy we saw that the first thing is that the patients have aura, and in the aura there is a sensation of something running in the arms, in through the pit of the stomach, abdomen, and then there were ailments from which was idiopathic actually, but there can be vexation. The patient can be very frightened, because if they get epilepsy, they may be masturbating, and the bad effects of masturbation may be epilepsy, that is onanism, and they might have suppressed some eruptions that they had chronically present. Okay, suppression of chronic eruptions they might have done through steroids or naturally or through any kind of ointment. So that is what we learned today. So I hope that you can revise it through this in one page itself, whatever we've learned today. Alright, so that's all for Calcarea Carb. We've completed talking about this beautiful remedy. Finally completed talking about this beautiful remedy, which is Calcarea Carb, and it is a polycrest. It is a constitutional remedy, and it has a wide range of action over so many things, right? So many organs and all over your body, right? So that's about it. Let's come back and meet for when we're discussing about some other remedy. Okay, so bye.